Okay.
Thank you. I'm really honored uh, to be invited to speak to you. And I really appreciate you having me, Paul. Um, like Paul said, my name is Shawn Robinson, and I serve as the Director of Recovery for Enders Island, which is a long-term post-treatment residential recovery community in Mystic, Connecticut. I do not only work here, but I'm here right now and I'm in my office, but I live here. So this I also am provided room and board as part of this position. I also have a dual role here. I work under the Diocese of Norwich Office of Safe Environments as a child advocate, which basically means that all safeguarding policies, protocol, and procedures, I'm responsible for the Catholic institution, that being Enders Island. So any volunteer, contractor, or employee of Enders Island has to submit application. They have to do a background check, and they have to become a Connecticut mandated reporter, to protect children and vulnerable adults from mistreatment, neglect, and abuse. And also the victim's advocate. So if there were to be any sort of report or allegation of misconduct, abuse, neglect, or mistreatment of a vulnerable adult or a child on Enders Island, I'm the first line of response for that individual to gather information and to follow protocol and make sure that they're taken care of. I've also just recently started a per diem position in the area. I'm a licensed mental health clinician for an urgent crisis center for children and adolescents who are struggling with behavioral health crisis, mental health crises, or suicidal ideation. And I do that for about 16 hours a week. So enough about me. Uh, I've been a part of Enders Island for 8 years now. My journey here was in many ways an accident, or maybe more accurately, kind of divine providence. While I was studying to become a drug and alcohol recovery counselor and a licensed social worker in school, I was dog sitting for a family friend, and he suggested that I reach out to Enders Island as he was in long-term recovery and had been to 12-step meetings here. And he heard that they had, something, somewhat of a program in the field of recovery. And he knew that I was looking for an introductory position in the recovery field. And at the time, I really didn't know what to expect. I had been to the island a few times, as it was a place that I could go fish for striped bass and nobody hassled me, right? And I'm a big fisherman. So I really had no idea what exactly occurred here. And, from the moment I stepped on the island, I knew it was a special place. And what started as curiosity quickly turned into a deep commitment to do the work that is so important here in recovery. And now, 8 years later, I'm honored to lead a community that has transformed so many lives, especially my own. I sent an email to an info at CatholicPsych.org, which was this little retreat that was happening at Enders Island. They forwarded my information to Father Tom. He contacted me. Father Tom's the president of Enders Island. And he interviewed me for about 10 minutes and hired me as the nighttime residential staff supervisor. So I was working part-time. The director at the time had resigned. And so I was the interim director for about 3 months while they were looking for someone else to fill that role. And the residents collectively went to meet with Father Tom and suggested that I was capable of doing the work. So they gave me that position. So it was very serendipitous. talk a little bit about the history of recovery on Enders Island. To truly understand what we do at Enders Island today, it's kind of important to know how we got here. And the island's long been a place of healing, but its role in addiction recovery started in 1965 when a priest who resided here, Father Joe Waite, he was a Catholic priest who struggled with alcohol use disorder, a severe alcohol use disorder. And people got together and began hosting AA meetings on Enders Island, which changed his life. And he lived a full life in recovery and sobriety after starting to go to AA meetings and finding that community. And at the time, addiction wasn't often talked about openly, and faith-based recovery resources were pretty scarce. But Father Joe, he kind of had an inclination that spiritual enrichment and healing was just as essential as remaining abstinent from alcohol. And I believe, and we believe, that his journey helped lay the foundation for what would eventually grow into something much larger. Fast forward to 2005, pardon me. Our current president, Father Tom, he began receiving phone calls from lifelong friends who were desperate parents of young men who were struggling with substance use disorder. And these guys had been either thrown out, dropped out of college, were fired from work, were struggling in their professional lives or in their relationships or within their families. And these families who have tried everything, as all of you may well know, countless detoxes, inpatient rehabs, and family interventions, but their sons still needed more. They needed structure, support, community, purpose, and I'd say most importantly, hope. And Father Tom himself, in lifelong recovery, I think it's 35 years and soon to be 36, saw an opportunity to create something unique, a faith-based recovery residence, where these young guys could rebuild their lives in a supportive, safe, and spiritually enriching environment. And so that's basically how the Enders Island recovery community was born. So this year celebrate its 20th anniversary and its 60th anniversary since the inception of recovery happening here on Enders Island. And what we do today is our program is dedicated to helping young men, like Paul said, between the ages of 18 and 30, who have completed primary inpatient treatment, right? But need a long-term structured environment to solidify their recovery. And what makes our approach different is that we just don't focus on sobriety. We focus on rebuilding an entire life. It's a case-by-case basis, and our program is centered on 4 key pillars. It's recovery, higher education, community, and spirituality. Our residents follow a structured daily schedule rooted in 12-step fellowship. We provide relapse prevention education, individual counseling, group therapy, goal setting, life skills training, and guidance in rebuilding relationship with family and friends. Every single day, our residents attend a daily AA meeting. These happen both on Enders Island and in the local community. And this, I think, helps them build a strong network of sober peers in the area. Many of our residents had their academic or career paths disrupted by addiction, so we help them get back on track, whether that means enrolling in college, getting a master's degree, or pursuing vocational training. We do that. We offer tutoring, college advisement, that's me, I'm the college advisor, mentorship, that's also me at times, help with job placement. Again, that's me most of the time. When the time is right, for them to start getting back to work. And this kind of gives them the tools they need for a long-term success. Just a quick aside here. One of my residents who's thriving right now in Manhattan, he was about 3 credits away from his degree at George Washington University in international affairs. It's a pretty prestigious program for that specific major. It had been about 3 years. He had 1 class left. We contacted the school. They let him finish his degree online. It was just 1 class. And then we were in, how does this individual move forward? What's next? He needed to get a job. He needed to get a place to live. So there's a lot of time and effort invested in him, by him and us. And I ended up, I had no idea what he wanted to do with his degree. He had a little bit of an idea, but I had no knowledge. And so what I ended up doing is I started cold calling financial investment firms in the area. And one guy answered the phone. His name was Ted Parker. He was the former vice president of international banking for JP Morgan in Manhattan. So I got really lucky with this call. I told him what I was doing, and I had a resident, and he said, I will absolutely help him. He started coming over to the island once a week, taking the resident out to lunch, helped him with his resume, gave him a letter of reference, and pointed him in the right direction. And that resident lives in Manhattan now and works for the Treasury Department as I don't know his exact title, but that's it. So that was just kind of an aside of the lengths that we're willing to go to help people with their long-term success. We are a Catholic recovery community, but we welcome residents of all faiths or no faith at all. We're not in the business of conversion. Our approach is to healing recognizes that addiction is not just a physical and psychological struggle, but also a deeply spiritual one. We do encourage participation in daily mass, prayer. We have retreats. We have recovery retreats. Every Saturday, I take a trip to the local parish and go to confession, and anybody's free to join me. And we also have spiritual direction for those who seek it. And I think one of the most powerful aspects of recovery is community. And here it's not just a residence, it's a real vibrant spiritual retreat center where our residents interact with people from all walks of life, experiencing all kinds of journeys. They would, bump into or join in to the meeting that Vinnie O'Halloran is used to coming here annually to receive. We integrate our residents into service opportunities, volunteer work, mentorship roles to help them rediscover a sense of purpose by helping out the newcomer. And many of our alumni, which is very interesting, stay connected long after leaving the island. They pop in, they call me to return to visit, stay for a few weeks. And I'm talking years after they graduate from this program. And that's something really interesting to take a look at, that they stay connected to this program. When a lot of my residents go to a 4-year university, and during the summer, they ask to come back to the island to stay for the summer, or if they have spring break, things like that. I just think that's really important and kind of may enlighten people exactly what's going on here and the connection and unity that occurs here. And some of those alumni, mentor new residents. Some have even retained positions of employment on the island in the past. ultimately, our goal is not just to help these guys stop using substances, right? Our goal is to help them build lives worth living, lives filled with meaning, relationships, contentment, joy. I've seen guys come across our causeway completely broken, totally lost, uh, absolutely hopeless. But I've also seen these individuals leave as, aspiring students, professionals, business owners, uh, husbands, fathers, leaders, the list goes on. But that's basically what Ender's Island recovery looks like in action. And many people will ask me, Shawn, you guys don't advertise. This is probably the most marketing that we've done in 2025 is me giving this presentation to you. But how do the guys find their way to Ender's Island? And the answer is almost always through a loved one. You know, I rarely, and I mean rarely, get a call from an individual who needs help, right? It's usually a parent, uh, a brother, family friend, sister, a priest, and sometimes even a former resident, who knows firsthand the impact of our community has had on their lives will reach out on behalf of someone else. But predominantly, I often receive phone calls from desperate mothers and fathers, all asking me the same question. We don't know what to do. What can we do? We've tried everything and nothing works. Nothing. And at that moment, my job is to guide them through the continuum of care, right? And we'll all pretty much know, but if you don't know what that means, it's a structured pathway to ensure that their loved one gets the right treatment they need at the right time. And it's important to also state at this time that, Ender's Island we're not a detox. We're not an inpatient treatment center. We are a post-treatment recovery community. And we're designed to provide long-term structure, stability, growth, and recovery. And this is kind of how we fit into the recovery journey or the continuum of care. So, if someone's actively using, I get these phone calls and they're in need of detox, I refer them to a medically supervised detox facility where they can safely withdraw from substances under medical supervision. We don't work with or are affiliated with any facilities, but I help families kind of navigate this very important process and give them the knowledge they need to make informed decisions and create a plan for their loved one. And then after detox, once stabilized, these individuals require inpatient treatment, where they'll receive, intensive therapy, medical support, groups all day, 24-hour supervision, in a structured living in a clinical environment. And I believe that that's, this stage is critical for addressing the root causes of addiction. I don't think you can skip any of these very important steps. I don't care how many times you've relapsed. Yeah, there are some one-offs and it does depend, but I think, when someone's relapsing, the conversation should surround, well, it's time to go back to detox, get into inpatient treatment, and we'll go from there. And when I have conversations with parents, I say just that, because it's a strong recommendation, if not a requirement, for a prospective resident of Ender's Island, to go to detox and go to inpatient therapy. I think skipping these steps can, prevent a resident from really experiencing the full functionality of our program. And so let's say that someone goes to detox and they go to inpatient treatment. After completing treatment, many individuals still need ongoing structure, accountability, and support before transitioning fully back into everyday life. If it takes you 10 years to walk into a forest, it's not going to take you 28 days to walk out, right? That's for sure. That's something that I've learned over and over again. And that's kind of where Ender's Island comes in. You know, traditionally people would either go home, go to an outpatient treatment center, or go to a sober house or a sober living environment. Um, it's kind of where the rubber meets the road for them. So everything, they have a head full of recovery that they've gotten for the past 28 days. Now they need an environment, you know, where mistakes can be made and learned from with the support of staff and each other. And our role is to bridge the gap between formal treatment and independent living. So we offer a safe, structured environment where recovery is not just maintained, but it's strengthened. And we help prepare the guys to reintegrate into the world, you know, academically, socially, professionally, and spiritually, um, while ensuring that they have a solid foundation in sobriety. Um, the typical stay for our residents at Ender's Island is about a year, if not longer. Um, I've had residents stay here for 2 years. I've had residents stay here for 3 or 4 years. I've had residents stay here for 3 months, 6 months, but I'd say that the typical stay is about a year. And the best way to describe what it's like here for a resident is is to describe what a typical day is here for them. You know, the schedule is at 8 in the morning, the guys get up. We have breakfast as a community. Breakfast is made to order. Then at 9 a.m., we have Catholic Mass every single day. It's mandatory. We don't require that you know, residents be Catholic or participate in Mass, but they must be in the building. They can use that time to meditate. They can use that time to clear their head for the day, whatever they want to do. But we strongly encourage all of our residents to be at Mass every morning. And before Mass, after they're done breakfast, you know, they clean their rooms, get ready for the day. 10 a.m. after Mass, a lot of our residents who aren't in school or have a job or aren't in therapy at the moment, they volunteer in our gardens. We have beautiful gardens here at Ender's Island. You know, we're a private nonprofit, so we're very hand to mouth. And the residents who volunteer in our gardens, they're a great asset to help take care of all of our beautiful dahlias and flowers and grounds. Every day at 12 p.m. So at noon, we eat lunch as a community with staff, volunteers, residents, retreatants. It's pretty exciting. We have 2 dining rooms. The retreatants eat on one side. Some of the retreatants eat with us. All the staff eat together and our residents eat together. After that, it's kind of back out into the gardens or volunteering with different needs in other departments. At 5:30 p.m., we have dinner. Dinner is just residents of the island, recovery staff, and kitchen staff who are preparing the food and serving the food. All of our residents and staff wear a collared shirt to dinner every night. Every night at 7, 7:30, or 8, it's a requirement that they go to a AA meeting. And so those meetings occur, like I said, on the island or off the island. And every evening at 9:30 p.m., we have about a 10-minute night prayer. And, you know, we're encouraging our residents to practice gratitude, prayer, meditation before bed. And we host this evening prayer in the Fisherman's Chapel in the main house. That's kind of the bare bones structure of a day in the community. Days look a little different for each resident on a day-to-day basis. I've contracted 2 Connecticut licensed professional counselors. So each resident has sessions with their counselor twice per week for an hour. They also have 2 group therapy sessions per week. One's with a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, and the other one is with me. On Wednesdays, the residents volunteer at the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center. It's a nearby community center which offers social services to the older population. They distribute food to community members and children. It has a thrift store and a senior center. On Thursdays, a certified recovery coach who's also a Catholic priest from the Diocese of Fall River. He drives down here and meets individually with each of our residents for a 12-step facilitation. So he basically walks them through the 12 steps of AA, discusses the AA philosophy in the Big Book, hosts discussions, and gives reading and writing assignments to assist them in their process, alongside their AA sponsor that they are required to procure through the meetings. And twice monthly, a Catholic priest from Boston, a Carmelite priest, he makes the journey down here, and he meets with each of our residents for an hour for spiritual direction, right? So how's your relationship with your higher power going, or with God? So, that's a typical week. We do have weekend recreational activities, like sometimes they go hiking, skiing, fishing, boating. I mean, the summer's definitely better over here than the winter. It's pretty bleak, but we want them to have those outdoor experiences and kind of promote joy and sobriety. All of our residents have access to the YMCA, which is a beautiful YMCA, the nicest YMCA I've ever been in. And it's literally 5 minutes away by car, about 15-minute walk. So residents go there once a day. Spiritual retreats. Our residents participate in guided retreats, sacred art retreats that kind of focus on their personal and spiritual growth. And for cultural enrichment, we take trips to museums, to Broadway shows, to sporting events. We go out to dinner at nice restaurants. We've gone to see the New York City Philharmonic. Our residents can take musical instrument lessons. And we do all of this kind of broaden their perspective and introduce them to things that they may have never really thought that they would enjoy. And it's nice to give them an opportunity to do that. And because recovery is about building a future worth staying sober for, our ultimate goal is to help each resident move forward with purpose. And many of our residents transition to four-year universities that have collegiate recovery programs within the school, so they can ensure that they remain in an environment that supports their sobriety while earning a degree. Others enter the workforce. Some secure meaningful careers, return home to their families, or go on to independent living. And no matter the case, we help them do all of that. And the transformation that I see is nothing short of miraculous. And I mean that. These guys who once struggled to function, right, in daily life, leave our program changed individuals, confident, purposeful. They have direction. They have a relationship with a higher power, and a very strong recovery. And as I'm a little bit over, we'll move on to Q&A. I just kind of want to leave you with this. Faith-based recovery, it works. At Enders Island, I've seen, these guys come to us again, broken, lost, hopeless, in the most serious of states. The families are destroyed. And I see them leave, as strong, capable individuals with a renewed sense of purpose. And if you're interested in seeing firsthand the stories of some of our residents' transformation, I encourage you to visit our website, endersisland.org, where we feature resident testimonials. There's some on there. These are real stories from our residents who have walked through our doors and changed their lives. And I think hearing it from them in their own words is often the most powerful testament to what we do. And I know that many of you here tonight have been impacted by addiction in your own families, and I want to acknowledge how incredible difficult that journey is. And I want to also remind you that there's hope there is hope, right? There's always hope. Healing is possible. Transformation is real. And I'm witness to it every day, and it's not easy. I'll tell you that. And if you ever want to learn more about Ender's Island, whether for a loved one or a friend or for yourself, or just to explore, more about what we do and how our recovery program changes people's lives, I'd really love to connect. And I'll give Paul my contact information, which is my cell phone number and my email address. And feel free to reach out. So thank you again for letting me present tonight. I'm sorry if it just sounded like a big Ender's Island commercial, but I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
I just had one. I was just curious if you had, what was it that made you, was there one particular moment in time that made you move from doing the sales and career in IT and communications to deciding to, study and pursue a totally different career?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's a good question to segue into. I've been doing so much talking. um, when I initially, when you're in high school and you're trying to figure out, it's a tough age, right? Like, where am I going to school? You know, but why? What do I want to study? What do I want to do? And so I asked friends and my guidance counselor, and more often not than not, the response that I got was that I was really compassionate and a good listener and a good friend, and so the guidance counselor said I should look into uh, human services, social work. So I you know, interested in, what was the biggest party school, like everybody in high school is interested in. I went to the University of Hawaii that happened to have a really great human services program too, and started down that path, right? Like all the residents here, I bombed out of school, failed out, got kicked off the baseball team, had to come back to New England with my tail tucked between my legs, and you know, things didn't get better. I had a very severe alcohol and drug use disorder that lasted for 17, 18 years. And say, I'd always been able, the functioning alcoholic and addict, and I was able to um, put together some career, some jobs for, maybe a year or two here and there, and to earn money. But I was not happy. This wasn't what I was meant to do. And as I started to uh, work a program of recovery, I really dialed back into, what I thought might give me joy and contentment. So no one told me at the time, but when you stop going to college, your credits are probably good for about 7 to 10 years. And there's like a limitation on them. So I had to go back to school all over again and start from scratch. So that's what I did. That's what I did. And I've never been happier since doing that. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it sounds like you have maybe 8 to 10 years of recovery.
Yeah, I'm 11 years. 11
Yeah.
years. Christmas Day, I wasn't trying to be special or anything. It just happened to be that way. But Christmas Day every year. So I had 11 years this past December 25th.
Shawn,
Anybody else?
yeah,
Hey.
it sounded anything like an Ender's Island commercial. I thought it was very well thought out and sincere and authentic. So thank you for that. I was
Thank
actually a bit surprised at the amount of clinical work or clinical time that the students get. That's not to say I thought it was a non-clinical. You're licensed, but I thought that was impressive because at the end of the day, while you guys might not market or or think about competing with other recovery programs, I think people do want to see, the licensed clinical work within the program. So I think that's a point to highlight. And if I were to sort of think about some programs down here in Fairfield County, Westchester County, there's this organization called Release Recovery. I think they've been quite successful, and I think there are a lot of similarities, age, demographic, et cetera, but it's secular.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that does seem to be of all of the features of the Enders Island program, it is the faith-based. I certainly am a huge believer, subscriber, participant in 12-step recovery, but I do think the treatment world, I don't want to say it's heading in a secular direction. I just think there are quite a few more secular-based programs than there are faith-based programs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is probably why you get these phone calls from parents. We've tried everything.
Yeah. Well, insurance doesn't want to pay for someone to be in a program for 2 years, but they should, right? Because that's what it takes. At least a year. And, parents call me in debt, they're in debt. They've spent fortunes on trying to do this another way. And I don't think that it was money spent in vain. I just think it was part of the process. Sometimes it takes people, 20 detoxes and 10 inpatient treatment programs, and they've been to the best places and the worst places. And, you just never know sometimes when they're ready to take hold and go. We pray that they will eventually. And so I have a lot of compassion for parents who call me because, again, we don't advertise. One of my first questions is like, how did you hear about us? Because I don't know how people find us, but I'm glad that they do, And we only have 12 residents here at a time. This isn't about, filling up every room that we have and collecting money. And it's not about that. It's about, if a resident comes in here, or if a resident was in an inpatient treatment center or another long-term residential recovery program and said, I want to go to college, they'd say, that's a great idea. You should do that when you get out of here, we're like, okay, let's make this happen now. Where do you want to go to school? Okay, let's get on a plane and go out there and do a college visit. Okay, do they have a collegiate recovery program there? Start doing things like that. Those are the lengths that we'll go to, because there needs to be a plan and there needs to be purpose. And the plan of going back home, right? The parents usually don't like that, and the resident just doesn't have enough confidence in their ability or purpose that they can do something different and live independently of their family, and be a good son, good brother, good uncle, all of those things. And so that's what we try to help them understand. And it's a real serious commitment from them, right? It's not easy, it's not easy.
I had a question about the collegiate recovery programs that you affiliate with. And I think when we talked before, you mentioned the University of Alabama, of all places, or
Yep.
maybe Texas Christian University, something like that. So they're all over the country, right? And somebody from Fairfield County should probably not, think of Fairfield University for their, I mean, it could be, but moving to a different part of the country, is that part of something that you encourage with these other programs, collegiate recovery programs?
Uh, yeah, I do. I thought Fairfield University had a collegiate recovery program, right?
Yeah, they do. I'm just thinking that it's so close to
Oh,
home,
okay, yeah.
you know.
So Texas Tech University it's kind of the premier they have like the premier collegiate recovery program that all others should emulate because they have a dedicated staff, they have a building, they have housing, they have a program, they have clinical guidance. They have a wonderful program. And also, this is the lengths that they'll go for individuals in recovery is if you apply to Texas Tech University and you apply to the Texas Tech University Collegiate Recovery Program simultaneously. If Texas Tech University denies your application or you don't get admitted, if you get into the collegiate recovery program, it automatically supersedes your rejection letter and you get in. And not only do you get in, you get in-state tuition no matter where you're from in the country because they believe that people need a second chance and are deserving of an education, right? So they're amazing. There's an association called the Association of Recovery and Higher Education. It's ARHE, and that is an accredited. That's the accreditation organization that makes sure that colleges and universities around the country that say that they have support for people in recovery and are considered a collegiate recovery program meet the criteria to really help students who want to go back to school to have a college experience and earn their degree in sobriety, in recovery. And there's UConn has a collegiate recovery program. I don't think they're ARHE accredited. Boston College University, University of Alabama, Kennesaw State. I could go on and on. UNC Chapel Hill, Vanderbilt, all over the country. University of Colorado. There's about 150 to 200.
Yeah. And so, but
9 years ago, this is just not a question. I visited Alabama with Father Tom, with an Enders Island student who was about 19, who had bombed out of prep school, brought him down there. Wonderful experience. By the end of within 2 days, the young man is like, I want to go to school here. It was a really cool, inspiring trip. I was just along to observe. So, at least from what I saw, they do a great job, and that's an unbelievable deal at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
The one and another non-question you had kind of zeroed in on the 1 year average stay. The dirty little secret with 30-day treatment is by itself, the success rates are incredibly low.
Yeah.
There's a ton of research, as I know you know, but I'll just say it for anybody who's listening, that the longer you can extend the care, the better chance of a successful outcome. And there's just a lot of research to support that 1 year period of time. And I've seen it myself with people I've either sponsored or counseled. So I think that's a really important point as well.
Yeah, thank you.
what about on the mental health side? It seems like everyone that is struggling with some substance use disorder has a co-occurring mental health disorder, and sometimes it's anxiety, it's depression. It can be more. It can be bipolar, it can be severe bipolar, it could be other personality disorders and things like that. So I guess there's a point where you have to say, given the regimen of meds that this person requires and the team of psychiatrists and things like that, there isn't a good fit here? Is that something you have to say sometimes?
So it's kind of a what came first, the chicken or the egg, as far as like mental health symptoms and addiction, right? Did the symptoms or disorder lead to self-medication, or was the symptoms exacerbated by, the substance use and alcohol? In every case, there's obviously underlying mental health symptoms. If someone is, my protocol for admission is I need someone to be medically cleared, right? They're not currently experiencing any suicidal ideation or homicidal ideation. If they have a diagnosed personality disorder, I'd like for them to be medically stabilized and signed off on by their psychiatrist or prescribing doctor with a plan to continue their prescription. But we get people from all over the country, so then it's my responsibility to find them another provider in the area. When someone is actively using or going through withdrawal at a detox center or feeling very crummy in a 28-day inpatient treatment center, all of those symptoms mimic, a plethora of mental health disorders. So and that's why in the DSM it says, there's differential diagnosis and also, criteria that ensures that you're not diagnosing someone if this could potentially be substance use or withdrawal related. What I like to do, right? Because sometimes people come in here with, 15 prescriptions. And I'm like, what are they doing out there? How do you feel about this? It's their life, it's their decision. I don't force them to do anything, but I have the conversation, and predominantly people say like, yeah, I don't want to be on all this stuff. I said, well, why don't we contact the provider, see what you might be able to wean off of, get some time under your belt, and see how you feel, right?
Yeah.
If someone has a legitimate personality disorder or mental health disorder or mood disorder, it's going to come out after they've been sober for 6 months. It's going to be obvious, apparent. It's just going to be the way it is. And so when we're there, I don't want people to suffer. And those people usually come in with a pre-existing condition that's been treated for years of their life. So they already know what's going on. They already have their medication that hopefully helps them, and they need to be able to self-manage their medication. But yeah, I love to give people an opportunity to experience abstinence for 6 months, 3 to 6 months, kind of get a baseline of what they're going through, and reconvene with them and their provider and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Because prescribing mental health medication is like throwing something against the wall and seeing what sticks, because those decisions are based on self-reporting from their clients, who may or may not be consistent with either their appointments to do that or the ability to vocalize that to their provider. So a little skeptical, a little skeptical. What do you guys think?
I like the way you just talked about it. That's awesome. Because everybody does have a co-occurring disorder, and but if they're committing themselves to the period of time like you're referring to, which is 1 to 2, literally could be 2 years, you have time during that to go through a period of experimentation, of less usage of and dependence on meds, and in abstinence, like you say. So I like the way you put it, and you're not forcing anybody into anything. It sounds like you're being very flexible.
Yeah, very flexible.
Mhm.
Yeah, just to add on, and again, it's not a question. I happen to, I'm an LADC, and um, there, as you pointed out, there is an actual diagnosis in the DSM called substance-induced mental health disorders. And basically, the abuse of drugs and alcohol can produce mimicked symptoms of depression or anxiety or bipolar. And if you have a couple of months that you with the client that where time will show those symptoms will either go away because they were induced by the alcohol or the drug abuse, or they'll stay, and then you want to treat them. And I think it's not possible. I don't think there's enough time in a 30-day inpatient program to find out what's real and what isn't.
Yeah, they're just doing the best they can with the time allotted from, payment from insurance companies, It's sad. It's all based on the Minnesota model, 28 days. And I mean, because we say that over and over again, 28 days. Like, I was curious, where did 28 days come from? Like, who decided that 28 days is the amount of time it takes for someone who struggles with substance use disorder to be cured for the rest of their life? And I know that that's not the case,
It was
but
the insurance companies that came
yeah,
up with that. They picked the
yeah,
shortest month of the year.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, if anybody or if I can talk to a parent or the individual of a young man or a man, uh, who's struggling, I'll provide my contact information, um, and have them call me or call me yourself, or have Paul or Vincent reach out to me. Be more than happy to help.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty open, you're pretty responsive to my texts and I know you have a busy day with all these different people, but somehow, you're able to respond. So I really appreciate that. Um, Anybody else here have a question? If you just unmute, you feel free to ask a question. Hey, Kevin.
Yeah, hi. I do have a question. Excuse me, Shawn, you talked about the ARHE, the collegiate certified programs being I think, couple of hundred, you said. How many of
Yeah.
those are Catholic colleges?
Um, you know, Probably about 5 years ago, that was a question that I asked myself, and not many, right? And by the way, hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, and because Catholic colleges, they don't have drinking problems, right? Um, which is ridiculous. So Boston College does, right? So Boston College has a collegiate recovery program. One of our residents just went there. Aside from that, I'd have to look at their updated list, but not a lot, not a lot. I think it has to, I asked Father Tom this a while back, and he kind of gave me this response that I gave to you, which is probably why it's so funny, because I wouldn't come up with that on my own. But um, they need to. Colleges are interested in admissions, right, and tuition, and they don't want their they're afraid, a lot of colleges are afraid to incorporate a collegiate recovery program into their school, because it's an admission that there's a drug or an alcohol problem at their university. which is almost ridiculous, right? Because like what I said is when I was choosing which school to go to when I was younger, was which school, you know, was known for partying and all that stuff, right? So, I mean, the experimentation phase in college, we all know is huge. So why not have the resources for people to not have to fail out, bomb out, you know, all of those things. They say they have them, like student wellness centers and all that, but it's always, you know, medically withdraw, things like that. So, so arhe.org has a list. They have an active list of, you know, like the 4 quadrants of the United States with every single collegiate recovery college and university. Kevin, if you want to check that out.
Okay, thanks.
You know, from my own experience with it, you know, not all of them that are listed have, you know, a residential part to the program. Most of them do, but not all. And it does happen. Yeah. So that's important. So it really comes down to through talking with people. It's more ending up being hard work of, you know, having to talk with individuals at the programs or talk with people that, you know, have had experiences, other parents and that kind of thing. That really helps.
Yeah. And it's for the student that needs the support or chooses to go into a collegiate recovery program at a university or college, it's not very intrusive. It's, you know, hey, this is what we have for you to support your recovery. You know, we have events, like you said, you know, some have housing, some don't. But if you need, if you would like to live in a dorm with like predominantly mostly sober people that are also part of this program, we'll do that. We have events, functions, we have a clinician that will help you. We have our own student advisors that will help you through this process that have, you know, maybe an interest or a degree or some sort of certification in, you know, recovery that may help. But you do have to do your homework, right? You do have to do your homework.
One other one that I found was Synergy of Westchester, Pennsylvania. And Synergy is a separate residential, you know, recovery housing company, similar to what the one Vinny was referring to, Release, but they happen to have a house that's adjacent to the Westchester University campus in Pennsylvania. And they don't even require that the student go to that particular university. They just need to go to a university in the area, but they all live at the same house. So that was just interesting approach.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, I think.
Yeah.
Because they have a home base, you know, they have a home base.
Mm-hmm. So if there aren't any other questions, and I don't see anybody else unmuted, so I'm going to say there isn't. And I'm going to say, I really appreciate it, Shawn,
Me
for you
too.
taking the time. So I hope the rest of you will join me in thanking Shawn Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shawn.
That was
Really
very
Thank you so
insightful.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.